I'm Mary McInnis Meyer from Field of Yoga, and I'm here with Stacy Turilli, a real live runner, so that we can demonstrate for you a post-run sequence that's to balance the runner's body. So Stacy has completed her run. She's walked a bit. She's done with really breathing heavily. You drank some water, right? Yes, definitely. And now she's ready to release that stuff from her run that we need to let go. So, before we begin, there's only a few things you need to do in yoga poses to do them safely and effectively. It starts with the foundation. So Stacy's feet will always be hip width apart unless I tell her otherwise. And then we want to make sure that we're engaged in the lower body. So we use the core to draw the hip flexors back. There's a sensation of inhabiting the back body. Okay, a little bit of yoga sounding language. And then same thing happens with this joint. So we do it with the hip joint, we do the same thing with the shoulder joint. We want to draw the head of the arm bones to the back body. So we have this sensation of really residing in our back body. And then the base of the skull draws back. So this is something we don't normally do as runners, right? Because we're moving forward. So this will balance us, it'll engage some of the muscles that we don't always use. But it's also just good alignment. Right, so base of the skull will always stay back, so even our neck will be treated well as we practice. So, first thing you want to do after a run is a forward bend. Be sure to do it with your knees bent. Okay. So Stacy's demonstrating her forward bend, and her mid-back is lower than her low back. It's really important. If it wasn't this way, I would say, Stacy, bend your knees a whole lot more. Watch what happens when she does. So bend your knees a whole lot more. And see how she is even more forward bent then. So you'll find, go ahead and come to the point where you like it, where you feel like you're getting a good stretch, okay? So as long as mid-back is lower than low back, we're good. Let's step back with the right leg. And we're gonna do about 4 breaths in every pose here. So left knee directly above ankle, side to side, the stance is still as wide as her hips. And for Stacy, she's running into her leg because she's so darn flexible. So she's gonna move her hands inside her left foot, and that'll give her a little more room to make sure that, go ahead and straighten your arms as you do that, to make sure that the space behind the heart can move down a little bit rather than running into her leg. This is the same as plugging in the arm bones to the back body. So after about 4 breaths here, then she's going to come into the twisting variation. So her right hand can stay there and her left hand can come to her hip, and she rolls it all the way back. And she's working to keep her, her right shoulder to her back body, right? Because sometimes that might come out, and this one rolls back. Take your left arm up, palm will face back, and never let your hand go behind the shoulder. If her shoulder can come back, her arm is allowed to go back. Otherwise, you're just introducing tension. Drop the arm behind the back and see how that feels. See if you can now turn from your navel and turn it up a little bit more. Awesome. She's been practicing. After about 4 breaths, setting the hands. Here's where we do something called a vinyasa in yoga. You can learn more about this online. And on an exhale, she'll step back to down dog. This is to help balance your body in the sense of upper body and core. So step your feet back a little bit. A down dog, the primary thing you're looking for is a straight line between hands and hips. So step back just a tiny bit more and bend your knees a tiny bit. And hinge the heart back. Awesome. On an inhale, come to a plank. Right? Everybody loves plank. So she might have to step back a little bit with her feet so her shoulders are right above the wrists. She's engaging to keep the hip flexors lifted, and as she lowers, she does that too. Exhale as you lower, and the chest comes down, and we resist by keeping the core up. Now she's moved into cobra. So we do this on an inhale. Draw the base of the skull back, yeah, and your gaze slightly forward. And she's taking her elbows in so her shoulders can be wide. On an exhale, come to the down dog. Use your core to give yourself as much lift and support as you can. Awesome. Press down through the knuckle under the index finger. That's going to want to pop up for most of us. So for good wrist health, we'll be pressing down. All right. On an exhale, step forward to Uttanasana, and we get to do the other side. So Uttanasana, she knows what it is a forward bend, and it's a Sanskrit word that means intense pose, especially for runners, I would say. So she's doing it very well. Excellent example of good alignment, making sure that it's doing what it's meant to do. After about 4 breaths, stepping back with the left leg. All right, so here I'll show you. If you weren't as flexible as Stacy, you might need to either come up onto fingertips or come up onto something like blocks. If you're outside doing this, which is what I actually recommend, just do it right outside after your run, then you're gonna have to improvise, find something. But you see how that irons out her back, right? The other option, if you are very flexible, is setting the hands inside of the foot, like Stacy had done before. So from here, we're gonna come into that twist. Right hand comes to the hip, and you can see this can be done with the hand on something as well. Roll the shoulder back, and then take the arm up. So you might find more freedom in your twist by giving yourself these props, okay? Drawing left shoulder back just a little. Oh, this is awesome. See if you can extend the body a little bit more forward. And after about 4 breaths, yeah, she can drop the arm behind the back to make sure that she gets some release. The other thing about dropping the arm behind the back is it reminds us of where we're moving from in this pose, from the center. It's not my arm taking me back or even my shoulder. It's working the core to take you back. Go ahead and set the hands. And you get to vinyasa again. So vinyasa simply means wise placement or movement on the breath. So you can remove the blocks and step it on back to your down dog. This is done on an exhale. Okay, on an inhale, she'll come out to plank. On an exhale, make sure your shoulders are directly above your wrists. Yeah, usually we have to step our feet back a little, so hinge your feet back a little bit more. Exhale as you lower, and she's keeping her core lifted, and then inhale as she comes into this awesome cobra. Look how happy she is. Exhale, and we come to down dog. All right, so in this pose, stay here as long as you need to. It's a really good balancer for your body. Same with Uttanasana, actually, if you can handle it. And she's going to step forward, exhale to Uttanasana, stepping all the way forward. And she's hanging out for a few more breaths. Now this next part, if you're not on grass, if you're on a hard surface, you'll need something to slide underneath the knees. And what I have for Stacy is this blankie. Put it so that you can step behind it. So go ahead and step back with your right leg all the way behind the blanket. And that's the pad for your knee, and if we have to move it a little bit, I will. There we go. Okay. So now we go into a back bend chest opener, right? Let's open up space to breathe. She can interlace her fingers behind her back, lift up through the chest, draw the fronts of the shoulders away from each other, bend more deeply into your knee. And think about not just bending back. You're thinking about lifting the heart up and arcing back from the top of the spine, okay? Now, if you can't get the shoulders open, if it looks more like this for you, then check the inset in the video here. We have another option for you to use a towel. So after about 4 breaths, she releases the hands down, okay? And we come into a twist that accesses the IT band area. So she's going to hinge her hips back, pull her left foot back, and maybe take your heel a little bit further forward. So you don't want your hips hanging too far behind your knee or else you'll feel unstable. Left hand to the hip, roll the shoulder way back, awesomeness. Take the arm up. This is more intense. If it causes you to go here, obviously keep it here and roll back, okay? And after about 4 breaths here, notice she's on her fingertips. Use a block if you need to, because it's intense. After about 4 breaths, then we come into the forward bend variation of it. So, and again, you can always drop the arm behind the back for that release aspect. So now she's going to fold over this leg. And when we say fold in yoga, we mean reach forward and lengthen and let the chest kind of lower, okay, as opposed to slumping in the back. So as she's doing this, she is totally lengthening, not just along the outside of her leg for IT band relief, but along the whole back side of her leg. She's pulling her left hip back. It looks awesome. There should be a sensation that your left heel might drag back, okay? Now she gets to come out of it. We're just gonna step forward into that forward bend, which starts to feel better and better each time, okay? So she's breathing. Letting things balance out and release. One side will certainly feel different than the other at this point. Then she'll step back left leg behind the blanket, dropping the left knee. Okay. And yes, awesome. She knows what she's doing. All right, so drawing the base of the skull back can help to actually get you a little more space through the chest. So as a runner, we need that room to breathe. And sometimes it gets a little closed off. So she's making that room, and after 4 breaths, she can set the hands and pull the toes back. Yep, she's getting it all aligned. Now her right hip, I'm going to remind her, try to pull it back, yes, to be kind of side by side with the left. And sometimes there's a little bit of tipping. I'm going to shift her this way. Maybe move your right heel to the right a little. Right, so if we're not side to side as wide as the hips, it's a little bit harder to get the alignment. And then left hand sets, right hand comes to the hip to roll the shoulder back. Right? So whenever you're doing the twist, you have the option of arm up or on the hip. And for a little bit more release, drop it behind the back. Go ahead and use this block for your hand. Okay? Let your elbow drop down a little bit so it's more of a sensation of you get to release. Yeah. Okay. So from here, it's the forward bend. Same pose, but now that we've twisted, step on back. We're going to do the same pose, but bent over the front leg. Yeah. So she's breathing. So counting your breath is a nice way to stay present in your practice. The breath is actually very helpful in yoga. It's not just a cliche. If you, what you focus on will grow. So if you are staying very present in what you're doing, the effects will be greater. After about 4 breaths, now you get to do Uttanasana. See how badly she wanted to do it? Here's a runner who actually wanted to do this forward bend. All right. So now she lets this balance out. It's like the 100th time she's done it in her practice. And from here, we're going to come to a seat. Okay, so go ahead and sit. So you want to do the work poses first, those things that you have to do standing. Now she's going to come into butterfly, or what we call Baddha Konasana in Sanskrit. And work to pull the heels as close as you can. Make sure you don't have tension in the knees. Okay, and so as close as you can without causing any tension or pain. None of this should be painful. It should just have an intensity of sensation. So look at Asma. I don't have to tell her what to do. Can you do this? All she's doing is using those plug-in points. Her shoulders are plugged into the back body. She's leaning forward with her heart, and look at how her head is in line with her spine. Now show the opposite. Show the slump that you probably did before you started doing yoga. Right? Now do you feel it as much in the hips? Right, so it goes away. Like, we have to work with our resistance. Don't bypass it. So now she's going to lift back up, and now you're allowed to open the angle of the knee. She's going to flex her feet, really important to protect the knee, and stack your right foot above the left, and it'll be, centered directly out in front of you so you feel balanced. And then this will get that right hip a little bit more. So she's doing the same thing now. The knees are a more open angle, and reach forward and breathe and find a spot where things are starting to change on your right hip. You can do the yogic thing, breathe as if the hip is breathing. And then she can switch, right, after 4 breaths. She's going to stack the left above the right. She's reaching forward with the heart and breathing. So you'll feel things start to let go, and you have to give it permission to let go, especially as a runner. You need these muscles for stability, but we also need to make sure that they are getting what they need, and that things can flow freely through them, like, say, circulation and energy. So after about 4 breaths, we can lift back up. Okay? And now we are going to, your favorite, extend your feet out in front. Okay? This is called Paschimottanasana. You don't have to remember it. Forward bend. For runners, pull your toes back, take hold behind the knees, and reach forward with your heart. Awesome. So notice how she has to bend her knees. Keep bending them a little bit more and see if you start to get more. So she's going to find a sweet spot that she didn't know she could get to, okay? Now, rather than doing the slump, right, if you keep the legs straight, it'll cause a slump and a bypassing of the resistance in the body. After 4 breaths, she can raise up. And then we're going to come to a squat, okay? So however you can, we'll transition. So this pose I've basically been doing the whole time. We're going to come and feet are slightly wider than the hips in this one, right? And whatever direction that your knees want to go, your feet are in that direction, right? So if my knees are here, I don't want to have my feet wider because it's going to strain them, okay? So they're off in the same direction. We'll spend a moment. And then she can take her, this is just a little bit of a hip balancer. She can take her knees together and her feet together. And in this pose, we're getting the really low leg muscles, the soleus and some of the muscles of your ankle. All right, so you'll stay here if you did a super long run because it'll feel pretty intense. You'll shift the weight to a point where your heels feel like they're releasing and you're getting sensation on the low back leg by the Achilles. And otherwise, if she wants more intensity, she shifts her chest over her left leg, keeping the left knee straight ahead. Let the right knee fall to the side, just let it go. Now the weight is being borne on the left leg. We're gonna leave it there. We're gonna let it release. So you'll find the spot where you can really feel something's changing in your Achilles area. And then after 4 breaths, she can come back to center, and we'll get the second side. Okay. So for most of these poses, we started with the lunge on a specific side. To balance yourself, also play around with starting with the left instead of the right periodically. And then, yep, she's coming back to center. One final Uttanasana, so widen the feet out to hip width apart and come into your forward bend and hang out. So this is a release pose, especially at the end. Maybe the knees can go a little straighter. Maybe she can find that she's got a little bit more to release than what she thought she had before.
It seems like I'm getting younger. Shouldn't I be getting harder? I'm so much less destructible.